This is Silver Stories. So please introduce yourself.
How do I introduce myself?
Just say your name and,
Hello, I'm Don Gutowski, your neighbor. Lived in the village of Norwich for over 60 years. Born in Chicago. Spent a lot of time up in northern Wisconsin with my father's relatives. During the war, my aunt, his sister there in Three Lakes, Wisconsin, had 3 boys in the service and a girl. She was a nurse. She had joined the Army right after Pearl Harbor. She had become a nurse at Evanston, the hospital there in Evanston. And she ended up being a lieutenant colonel who was up to be the first woman general, but she didn't make it. Her girlfriend made it, so she had to retire. But she had a good life. She was President Eisenhower's nurse at when he had his heart attack. She was in charge of the nurses' staff, caring for him. So after he got on his feet, retired from office, he came and visited her brothers and her mother, Eisenhower, in Three Lakes. Big news item. Anyway, I got son up there. My first time, I was 12 years old, come home from school, and my dad hands me a $20 bill. He says, you're going to visit, you're going to spend the summer with Aunt Bernice. Her boys are in the service. She cooks with wood. She eats with wood. She needs help around the house. You're it. So I had to catch the streetcar, 12 years old, catch the Northwestern train, take it up to Three Lakes. I've been raised to be very independent. Most of my family are small business people, and some of them very successful, some not so successful, but we've done well. I learned a lot in the 2 different lifestyles between a small town and Chicago. I was living in Three Lakes, and I had moved up there in 1949 after graduating high school. Was working in the woods, driving a truck, just general employment. I'm atop a load of logs, tightening the logging chain to keep it on the truck. My uncle's cousin Steve comes out of the garage. He says, Donnie, maybe in a few months you can be cradling a submachine gun. What the hell are you talking about? He says, they just started a war in Korea. Mm. Well, I knew that I was cannon fodder. So I went fishing for a week, camping, enjoyed it, moved back to Chicago. Got a job in a factory manufacturing precision metal cutting tools. Figured that'd be a deferment from going in the service. They weren't giving deferments for that. So one day I'm visiting two friends that are working at St. Adalbert's Cemetery. We go out to lunch at El Central Restaurant on Elston and Central. Still there, still good food. We finish lunch. My friend Eddie and Ted, who both worked in the office at St. Adalbert's Cemetery, said after we get out of work at 1 o'clock, we'll go to O'Hare and look at the jet planes. I said, gee, that sounds like a good idea. I wanted to get up close to one. And we drove up to the gate, and my friend Eddie was driving. He says, where's the recruiting office? Eddie, what are you doing? He said, oh, that's the way we get to see the planes. Okay. So I'm sitting in the back of the room. Ed and Ted are up front talking to the recruiters. And this colonel comes over, the big cheese, sits down next to me. What do you do? I said, I do a lot of things. I'm a tool grinder. I've had all kinds of jobs in different industries. Worked on Maxwell Street, drive a truck. He said, do you smoke? I said, no, I don't smoke. He said, I got a good job for you. You'll refuel airplanes. We need people that don't smoke. Here's your application. So I came home. My mother started crying. She lost a brother in the Air Force in World War II. And I says, Mom, 90% of the people don't fly. I'll get a job on the ground. I'm driving a truck, not an airplane. Yeah, I'll watch myself. I did very well. 30 days after I joined the Air Force Reserves, they notified me I'm going on active duty. So they activated the 1,000 members of the reserve unit, and I went to basic training, went through a testing program, and they gave me a choice of 3 fields. Airplane engine mechanic, instrument repair, and radar repairman. So I says, any one of the 3. So you're going to radar repairman, Biloxi, Mississippi. 7-month school. Turned out to be the best deal. And I grew up in the Air Force. I learned that you get a good education, you get a good training, you'll do well. Well, I went from a private, no stripe, to a staff sergeant with 4 stripes in 12 months, no, 18 months. That's all the promotions I could have gotten. I was in charge of 16 airplanes, all the radar equipment, and they offered me to leave early. I didn't have to stay in for 24 months. I could leave at 18 months. I took it. Came back, signed up for Navy Pier. That's when we were the college in the lake. And I found out I cannot go out for 8 nights a week or life wasn't a big party. And I got kicked out of Navy Pier. My grades were not adequate.
Mm.
So I was determined. I went back and talked with the Dean of Personnel. I had signed up for mechanical engineering. I didn't like electronics. I excelled in it, but I didn't like it. So I went, talked to him. He said, I'll give you another chance. Will you go down to Champaign-Urbana? I said, I thought that's what I should do, get away from all my friends and their influence. So I spent 4 years down at Champaign-Urbana. I went from high school, where I was in the upper 90%, not the upper 10, to the upper 20% at college. So I graduated highly, got a good job upon graduation in Morton Grove, a company called Minneapolis Honeywell. Had known this young lady for about 6 years, and I started dating her when I was a senior at Illinois, and I ended up, she was a graduate of Notre Dame. So I started going with her, and I was going for a master's degree in engineering. And I didn't want to become a professor. So I took this job with Honeywell. And it turned out to be the perfect job for me. I loved what I was doing. I had over $100,000 in cost reduction savings for the company, with it being paid a salary of $4,800 a year. So they wanted to promote me to go up to Minneapolis and get into their upper management. I said, no, I'm a Chicago boy. I'm not leaving. So I took a job as chief engineer of a tool company and did very well. And then after another 4 years of working for other people, started my own business.
Wow.
Successfully. It's still in existence, but it's the 5th owner of it now. I've owned a couple of other businesses. The Sussman's diaper. I became an investor in a company called Hooper Engineering. We manufactured the machinery that put the plastic film around hot dogs, cold cuts. It was owned by John Morrell, the meat packer. Well, they wanted to dispose of the company, and the president of the company was a neighbor of mine in Norwich. He says, Don, I want to buy the company. And he says, I know you're on the First State Bank of Chicago advisory board. Maybe you could look and give me some advice on how to buy the company. So I'll take a look at it. So I reviewed it. I says, well, first thing, you don't have enough assets. You're going to need about $750,000 to buy this company. You don't have that. He said, well, I got this other guy in Houston. He's got maybe 100,000. He says, would you be interested in investing it? I said, I'll talk to Lucille. We'll see what she thinks about it. Yeah, I don't know. You got a business now. Well, it'll run itself. I'm not going to get, I'm only a financial advisor and an investor. So I bought into that company and owned it for 4 years. Made money like a machine. I got into a discussion with my partners. They passed a couple of things. So we sold the company on the basis that we share in future profits. In selling the company, we maintain that we share in the profits of the company for the next 2 years, a certain percentage. 6 months after we sold the company, the last machine we developed, we had sold to Johnson & Johnson, was the suspense diaper machine, manufacturer, the first suspense diaper. Each machine cost $600,000. 6 months after we sold the company got an order for 10 machines. $6 million order.
Wow.
All my kids went through college. No college,
Wow.
but they're very lucky in business, fortunate. But it's not easy running a small business.
You've done a lot for like the community and like, you know, you're very inspirational that you've done all of this.
Aside from earning money and education, I was involved 29 years in the administration of the village of Norridge.
Wow.
I started out as a member of the zoning board, and I spent 12 years on the zoning board. The last 10 of the 12 years, I was chairman of the zoning board. Central Baptist had a little building here with about 24 apartments, and they wanted to expand. They bought the 10.5 acres here. And they spoke to Chuck, the superintendent at that time. And he says, here's what we want to do. We want to build this facility. And I says, that sounds good, but let me look up the zoning for this area and our zoning laws, and I'll advise you. So I got back to him a week later. I says, I like your plan. The problem is you're zoned for single-family homes. You can't build anything. You, in fact, illegally built the first property. I says, but don't worry. I spoke to the mayor and the village board. You get your attorney, your architect, and meet with the village attorney and the village engineer. And we'll rewrite the zoning to permit you to expand. But we got a couple of limitations. We want to retain the suburban atmosphere. We don't want to make it like Chicago hospitals. They build up to the sidewalk, go up. I says, we don't want to encroach on the residential atmosphere of the village. Build back from the sidewalks. Go up 3 floors. You want to go up higher, move further into the property and go up to 5, 6. Agreed. So they submitted the plan. We looked at it. Here it is.
Wow,
Also, I'm very involved with my wife in Mother Guerin High School, Divine Savior Church here in Norwich. We were on all kinds of boards here. And I remember at Mother Guerin, the Cardinal wanted Guerin to have a school board. And I was on the Father's Advisory Board at Guerin. So I sat down with the head nun, and she told us what the Cardinal wanted. I said, yeah, you should have a school board, but don't run a general election, because you're going to get people with access to grant, and you're not going to get anything done. Says, what you want to do, I'll help you locate the people. You want a bank president, you want a purchasing agent, you want an engineer, civil engineer, someone familiar with building construction, and you want an accountant. So I set up the criteria for the board, and we set that up. The first year, we embarrassed the administration of Guerin so much. The nun who collected all of the tuition, she kept all the tuition money in the checking account. And this is when they were paying 8 and 10% interest on accounts. They looked at the menu of Holy Cross High School. The girls were paying 10% to 20% more for their food than the boys. Same vendor. Needless to say, the nuns dissolved the parents' committee.
I have one last question for you. What
Sure.
is one piece of advice that you want to give the world about anything? What's your one piece of advice?
You give back to your community.
I think that sums it up. I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank